Hi, welcome to APA Documentation Part 2. So we were talking about finding scholarly articles on EBSCO, which you already know how to do. We used EBSCO for the research summary email. Only this time you will click the scholarly button and choose something from a scholarly journal, and you will need to get that APA format citation for that. So, how are you going to put together this working bibliography? Well, here is your assignment. A working bibliography is a list of sources that you plan to consult for your paper. Now, this isn't due until Friday, March 3rd, so again, you'll see me before it's due. Also, this list of sources is likely to change as you narrow your topic or broaden your topic or change your topic. But it will get you started looking for sources. It will get you practicing APA format, which is an important part of the paper. So you might decide not to use some of these sources and remove them, and you will likely add to your list of sources as well. You'll want to do a good job on this because this will become the references page at the end of your paper. So even though the working bibliography is only worth 10 points, the paper as a whole is worth 100 points, and this is a key part of it. So for the 10-point working bibliography assignment, I'll be looking for a minimum of 5 sources. One of those has to be scholarly. It has to be from a peer-reviewed journal, and I'll be able to tell by the title of the source and also by the page numbers, whether it's scholarly or not. If you're having trouble finding one, email me and we'll look for one together. And then you'll need to have a variety of other reputable sources, such as trade magazine articles or newspaper articles or books, videos, or websites, especially from those .edu or .gov websites. So 5 points will be for the source quality. The other 5 points will be for the formatting. And you read a section in the book on APA formatting that will help you get started on this. So you need to have consistent, correct APA style. Your sources should be in alphabetical order by author's last name. You should use hanging indentation. I'll show you what that is in the next slide. You should type the word references centered at the top. And everything should be double spaced with no extra spaces between sources. So your working bibliography will be a Word document that looks like this. The title references centered at the top because again, this will become the last page of your paper. Your sources in alphabetical order. Usually it's by the author's last name, but some sources do not have authors, so it's whatever word begins the entry. Everything is double spaced. I don't have any extra spaces between my sources. I use hanging indentation. So if a source extends longer than one line, the second line is indented. Here's another one that extends longer than one line. Notice the second line is indented, and in this one as well. And then each individual source is mostly correct. I do not nickel and dime you for every error because I make errors and I find errors. I told you even EBSCO doesn't have their APA format correct. However, I should be able to see who wrote the source, what year it was, the title of the source, the date you retrieved it if it's a web source, page numbers, volume number, and the punctuation should be mostly correct. So I will make corrections on your working bibliographies and you can perfect them for your paper. You can use a variety of resources to help you create this bibliography. You've probably used some of these before, so I would pick the one you're comfortable with and use that. You could use the pages 60 to 360 to 365 in your textbook, and especially table 9.1, which is what you read for tonight's class. The MSTC library actually has a research guide that might be helpful. So you could use that. Click on this link and it will take you right to it. And actually, maybe I can open that up just to show you momentarily here. So here's their research guide, and if you scroll down, they've got how to cite a book by a single author, how to cite an article or a chapter in an edited work. How to cite a journal article. You're required to have a journal article, so this gives you a model right here. So this is something else you could use to help you format that page. The Purdue University website is just like that, but it goes a little bit more in depth. So when you ask me questions about how to format a certain type of source, this is usually where I go. So I'll go to Research and Citation, I'll choose APA style, I'll choose their formatting guide, and I'm going to look at their reference list. And we deal a lot with electronic sources. So if you're asking me, well, I got this, it's from a periodical, but it's online, I'll usually go here and look for the answer. Or this came from a database, how do I cite it? Or I'm just using the abstract of this article, or how do I do a newspaper article that I got online? So this can be good for those kinds of questions. Maybe the best thing to use is Microsoft Word. I'll just open up Word momentarily. If you've taken a Microsoft class, you know how to do this. Okay, so I'm doing this at home on my Mac. I had to pause for a minute and figure out how to do it, and I'm probably using an older version of Word, but somewhere on your tab here, I think it says sources or resources. On a Mac, it says document elements, and then over here I've got references. Oh, actually, I think that's what it says on a IBM PC. So under references, I'm going to make sure it says APA, and then I can click on Manage, and then a little plus sign, and it gives me like a citation maker. So I can just type in, let's see if I've got an article in a scholarly journal. It tells me exactly what I need. So I'm going to type in the author and the title and the journal name and the publisher. And if I can't find any of this information, like there's no editor, I just leave it blank. If there's no shortened title or standard number, I just leave it blank. And then I click OK, and it actually cites the source for me. The nice thing about using Word is that once I create my references list, then when I'm typing up my paper, in the body of my paper, and again, I'm getting ahead of us a little bit, but if you've used Word for this before, you'll understand. If I quote someone, I can just click, insert citation, and it will insert the parenthetical, the author's last name and year and page number where that quote came from, so I don't have to do it manually. So if you do know how to use Word, it's a good one to use, and we'll actually practice with Word next week in class. So if you have questions about that, we'll cover it then. So we will be practicing this in class. Okay, and then many of you probably have used, let's see how to get out of this. Many of you have probably used something like EasyBib or NightCite or Citation Machine, and those are fine to use. They all are not perfect, but we will get your source list mostly perfect so that you increase your credibility. So I want you to use what you're most comfortable with for creating sources. So here's NightCite. It's free. It's on the internet. I can click APA. I can choose my source over here. Here's a journal article. It tells me what information I need. I click Submit, and then it will give me the citation, and I can export that to Word or copy and paste it in Word. And again, if you haven't done this before, you haven't done it in a while, I don't want you to stress out. We'll practice it in class, and then this is also going to be a 10-point working bibliography assignment. We'll get it perfected and corrected before you turn in your final paper. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is briefly how to read a scholarly article. So you have to have one scholarly article for your paper, and you'll know that at the beginning of the semester we read something called Content Volatility in Wikipedia, and it was a tough article. I imagine a lot of people probably read it and didn't pick up on everything it had to say, or stopped reading partway through. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how a good reader reads a scholarly article. So these scholarly articles are written by experts in the field who are doing primary research. They're doing experiments and surveys. This is one that Jess used for one of her assignments that I liked. It's from the Journal of Social Psychology. So you can see that at the top, the journal that it's from, and the year, the volume and issue and page numbers. The title of the article is Say It Near the Flower Shop, Further Evidence of the Effect of Flowers on Mating. Intriguing. The cool thing about a scholarly article is that the summary is right here. So you can read that abstract, and this also is the first thing that will show up on EBSCO, and it will tell you what this study discovered, and you can decide whether or not that's going to be useful to your paper. So this study discovered that women agreed more favorably to a Confederate, that just means someone pretending to ask her out. Women agreed more favorably to a Confederate's courtship solicitation when solicited in the area of a flower shop. Positive mood induced by exposure to flowers was used to explain these results. Women agreed more favorably to someone asking them out when they were asked out in front of a flower shop, as opposed to a cake shop or a women's shoe shop. Kind of interesting research. So that's the first thing I read when I look at a scholarly article. And then I skip all the way to the end and I read the discussion. Not the results. The results is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo statistics and numbers that I don't understand, that I don't remember learning in college. I'm going to read the discussion, which goes into more detail about what this research study really proved. Well, and what it says is that flowers make us feel a certain way. They make us feel positive and in love. So if someone happens to ask you out in front of a flower shop versus a pizza shop, you're more likely to say yes. Intriguing. After the discussion, I will sometimes go back and read the introduction, and this will contain citations to other articles that might be of interest to me, and I can find them at the end if I would like to type in their titles on EBSCO and use those instead. And then the third thing I sometimes read is the study itself. This is a pretty simple study. 600 young women, randomly chosen, 5 men asked them out. I can understand that. Sometimes the studies are complex, if you're looking at chemicals or biology, and I can't understand them. So sometimes I don't even read the method. And that's okay. You are not a researcher. You're not going to replicate their experiments. You don't have to read that. So I would say read the abstract, read the discussion, read the introduction, and then if you really are interested in their methodology, read that. The part I almost always skip is the math part, because again, their math is correct. It's been peer reviewed by others. I'm not going to do the experiment myself. By all means, read the entire article multiple times, but I think for our purposes, it's okay to just read those sections. And in your daily life, when you're looking for information, it's okay to just read those sections. Okay, so I think this ends part 2 of APA documentation and how to read a scholarly article.